Hi friends, my name is Kim. Welcome to Healing Place Cottage. Welcome to my kitchen. I am so happy to have you with me today. Today we're going to make one of my specialties, and it's a chicken pot pie, but I do things just a little bit different. I was very excited to pull up the nutritional facts about this recipe. So this is assuming that you eat an eighth of the pie as your slice. So it may be more like a sixth of the pie, and you may need to take that into consideration, but I think there's room to do so, especially in the carbohydrate front. So it looks like calorie-wise, if you eat an eighth of the pie, and this is taking into consideration all the ingredients that we're going to use today, you're looking at 450 calories, 19 grams of fat, 28 grams of carbohydrates. And I'll repeat that at the end of the conversation, but I don't think that's bad at all, especially for such a comfort food. This is something that I make for people all the time. We actually call it a prayer pie, and I make it when people are having a baby, or when someone has passed away, or if someone is sick, and I pray for people while I am cooking it. And so that's why we call it a prayer pie. But let's go ahead, and I buy these throwaway pie tins because I make it so often for other people. And today I'm making it for my aunt who just had both of my aunts. But one of my aunts just had surgery. And I said, well, let me bring over a pie for dinner. So I use this Pillsbury pie crust. I don't think you can beat it. It lasts forever in your refrigerator, and I just think it may not be just as good as homemade, but it's pretty close. And I let it get warm so it's easy to unroll. And roll it out into your pie shell. And then I'm going to take my rings off. And then using your knuckles, go around the inside of the pie and press in to get it all against the sides. And then you can fold over in places where your crust is bigger than you need. So here I'll fold over. There are just automatic folds where you can just go ahead and do that. And then what I do is I take a knife and I just cut off the crust like that. And you want to pre-bake this shell, the bottom shell, for about 10 minutes. So about have it. All right. And then you want to poke a couple holes in the bottom of the pan. And you want to preheat your oven for 4 to 450. And I've already done that. So I'm going to put this in the oven, set my timer for 10 minutes, and we will go ahead and get started on our ingredients for the pie itself. So the first thing we're going to do, we're getting our skillet hot, and we're going to go ahead and put 4 tablespoons or half a stick of butter in our pan. And we're just going to make a roux. I'm going to go ahead and get my flour. So we're ready when that melts. And I'm going to go ahead and cut my chicken up. I've already cooked my chicken. I actually keep chicken breasts in the freezer that I've already cooked. so that it's very simple for me to put together a pie whenever I realize someone needs one. So what recipes have you been making recently? Tell me in the comments. Have you enjoyed any of the recipes that we've cooked together? I had tacos for 3 days. And the last day I used the Carb Smart flour tortillas. I didn't fry my own. And they were delicious. I just heated them up in the microwave for 10 seconds. And they were absolutely delicious. We'll go ahead and melt our butter. Or we'll continue melting our butter. And so that is 1/4 cup. Did I say 1/2 cup or did I say 1/4 cup? So that is 1/4 cup of butter. So you want to add about an equal amount of flour. So 1/4 cup of flour. And it's super important that you cook that flour down. And what that means is stir that in and let it start to change color. So get it all mixed in with that until it makes like a loose paste. We're actually going to need a little bit more flour than that. Oh, that's too much flour. We'll just add more broth. A roux is very forgiving, I have found. So what I mean when I said you want to cook that flour down is flour has a very raw taste. And I think we made a recipe together with the paprika, with smoked or Hungarian smoked paprika. And I said it tasted raw, like when you don't cook your flour down. That's what I mean, is you want to let this change color a bit and take that fresh flour taste out of it so that it doesn't, that's not what your gravy tastes like. Okay, so got that going. I've got chicken broth here. I'm going to say we're probably going to use 1 cup to 1.5 cups, but you can tell I only put a little bit in, so probably only put in about 1/4 cup, and then just keep putting it in until it's no longer a thick paste. So more like 2 cups. And you want to just whisk out your lumps. I'm going to go ahead and put some more in, because we're going to add cheese to this. And so the cheese is also going to thicken it. So you want it just a little looser or a little more liquidy than you would when you are making gravy. So you can see we have all of our lumps out, very smooth. We're going to go ahead and add freshly cracked black pepper and a little bit of salt. You don't want to put a lot of salt in unless you're using low sodium chicken broth, because the chicken broth has salt in it as well. A let's give this a taste. A little bit more chicken broth. And I will add just a hair more salt. I should say a pinch. None of us want hair in our food, right? A little bit more pepper. We'll go ahead and open our Velveeta. You can use whatever cheese you like. I have just always made this recipe using Velveeta. Now at this point, if you don't like, I'm making this with broccoli and cauliflower and Velveeta cheese. But if you don't like those ingredients, but you like mixed vegetables, you can add a bag of frozen mixed vegetables at this time, or a can of mixed vegetables. You can add corn and green beans and peas if you don't like carrots, or whatever ingredient you don't like in the mixed vegetables. You can add cans of the other elements that you do like, and you don't add cheese with that. So I would say when I made this, I'm looking at my recipe, I said we would use 4 1/4-inch slices of Velveeta. Let's go ahead and let that cook and melt down. I'm going to add a little bit more my chicken broth. So anytime it starts to get too tight or too thick, you just go ahead and add that chicken broth. There's something so satisfying about making a gravy. I suppose it wouldn't be as satisfying if you couldn't get the lumps out. But it's so smooth and creamy. We're going to start adding some of our chicken. And I'm using chicken breast, as I mentioned. You can use chicken thighs. Let me get my pie crust. Well, we definitely overcooked our pie crust, so 10 minutes is too long, but that's okay. So we want to add our chicken into this. So I would cook the pie crust for 7 to 8 minutes. And then I take a bag of steamed broccoli and cauliflower. I haven't even cooked this. You can cook it in the microwave, but I've let it sit out while I got this recipe prepared. I'm going to change to a different utensil, because it's going to cook in the oven. We're going to let it cook a little bit on the stove. So this is a little thick still. So I've used probably 2/3 of this container of chicken broth, And there are 32 ounces in the container. So I've probably used about 20 ounces, 22 ounces so far in this. And I am just cutting these into smaller pieces. Normally I get the store brand, but I went to Walmart to get this and they didn't have the store brand. The store brand has smaller pieces, but this is the name brand of this, and they have big, thick pieces, which are really nice, but for the pot pie, we actually want the pieces to be a little smaller. Have you ever had a chicken pot pie with broccoli and cauliflower and cheese sauce? When I was younger, when I first got married, a friend of mine introduced me to this recipe, but she didn't make her own gravy. She actually used cream of chicken soup. And so that's something that's definitely doable. It's delightful either way. I like it better with the homemade roux and gravy, but if you aren't a gravy making person, don't let that stop you. Go ahead and use a can of cream of chicken soup. All right, just make sure we get the rest of this cheese melted. Okay, now that we have our cheese melted, well, mostly, we'll go ahead and pour this into our pan. You don't want to overfill it. That's pretty good, actually. So what I'll do with the rest of this, actually, is I will once it cools off, I will put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer. And so the next time I need to make a chicken pot pie, I already have the ingredients. I think I've mentioned before, I'm all about speed and efficiency when it comes to cooking. So we will put this pie crust across the top, and I'm not very good at this, making the thumbprints and doing all of that fancy stuff. I'll get a fork, actually. We'll do a fork. Now I do one thing that's fancy, and I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and cut off our crust. And I want you to be careful when you're cutting off this crust, because we're going to do something with it. Okay. So you're going to put 2 slits in the top so the steam can come out. And then I want you to take this crust and lay it down flat and cut 2 leaves out, or 3. put that on top of your pie. And it looks a lot fancier. Got one more. There. Just cut the rest of this off there. And now no one knows just how easy this pie was. So I want to go ahead and put that back in the oven. Actually, I want to put it on a cookie sheet. So let me grab a cookie sheet. We'll put that back in the oven. And this does take longer. So we'll start with 10 minutes. But it typically takes longer than 10 minutes. So when we come back, we will pull it out of the oven and I'll let you see what it looks like. As you can see, I came in and put some tin foil around the crust, but I will show you that I did that just a little bit too late. So the top doesn't get done as fast as the crust on the outside edges do. But this is our pot pie. You can see it's coming out. The cheese is oozing out just a little bit. I'm not going to cut into this because this is something that I'm taking over from my family, as I mentioned. But I hope that you enjoyed this recipe. As I mentioned, I would recap what our calorie count and everything is. And so for broth, we were looking at 1 cup was 15 calories and 1 carb, and we probably used about 2.5 cups, but you're not getting all of that in 1/8. Excuse me. You're not getting all of that in 1/8 of the pie. Crust, 1/8 of it was 100 calories, but because we have a top and a bottom crust, that's 200 calories, 12 grams of fat, 24 carbohydrates. Butter, 1/8 of what we put into our pan, that was 51 calories, 6 grams of fat, 0 carbs, 0 fiber. Our cheese, that was using 4 1/4-inch slices of cheese, which I don't think we used that much, but maybe close. And we probably did use that much. I'm not good at measuring, so I'm guessing we probably did use that much. But if you're going to look at 1/8 of that, you're looking at 70 calories, 4 grams of fat, 3 carbohydrates. And chicken, if we use 1/8 of what was in that pan, if we eat 1/8 of what was in there, that is 115 calories, 2.5 grams of fat, 0 carbs, 0 fiber. So you're looking at 450 calories, 19 grams of fat, 28 grams of carbohydrates. And most of us have butter. You've got the cost of the chicken, which I use 2 chicken breasts. You're probably looking at $5 for 2 chicken breasts. We used just 1/4 of the container of velveeta, and velveeta is $9, I think, so 1/4 of that. The crusts, I get them when they're on sale for $1.99, but you can get them at $3, I think. And the broth, which I get that when it's on sale for $1.49. So you're not looking at a super expensive meal, and it is absolutely delicious. And like I said, if you don't like broccoli, cauliflower, and the cheese, you can make a regular pot pie with the chicken and mixed vegetables, or whatever vegetables you would like. And I can tell you that everybody that I make the pie for really enjoys it. So I hope that you enjoyed this recipe. I hope that you make it and let me know in the comments what you think. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do so. And I will look forward to cooking with you again soon. Take care, everyone.